Nara stared out from the observation deck of the Stellar Horizon Research Station. The vast emptiness of space stretched before her, with Earth gleaming blue and green in the distance. Her slender four-fingered hand pressed against the cold viewport glass, its movement jerky and uncontrolled. Unlike the elegant, fluid motions of other Tajin, Nara's body betrayed her at every turn. "Subject Nara, you have missed your scheduled treatment," came a flat voice from behind her. Nara didn't turn immediately. When she did, the movement was awkward, her body rotating in segments rather than the smooth pivot normal for her species. The medical drone hovered at eye level, its scanner light washing over her mottled skin. "The treatments do nothing," Nara said quietly. "We both know that." The drone recorded her response without comment. Its programming didn't include empathy subroutines, only medical protocols designed by Tajin physicians who had long ago decided her case was hopeless. Nara's skin should have been a uniform blue-green, shifting with beautiful patterns that reflected her emotions and helped her communicate. Instead, large patches remained dull and unresponsive, particularly along her right side, where neural pathways failed to stimulate her chromatophores. When she felt strong emotions, only the left side of her body flashed with color, creating an asymmetry that other Tajin found disturbing. "Report to Medical Chamber 3 for neural stimulation," the drone insisted. Nara complied, limping slightly as she made her way through the curved corridors of the station. Other Tajin moved aside as she passed, their skin rippling with patterns that communicated discomfort and pity. Some darkened their chromatophores in patches, the Tajin equivalent of averting one's eyes. She had been on the station for 347 Earth days. The official reason was specialized treatment unavailable on Tajin Prime. But Nara understood the truth. Her family belonged to the scientific elite. Her mother directed the Genetic Advancement Council, while her father served as an advisor to the Tajin High Command. A daughter with a neural disorder was an embarrassment they couldn't tolerate. The research station provided a convenient solution, removing her from public view without the social stigma of abandonment. The Tajin leadership had approved her treatment program with minimal scrutiny. No one expected results. In Medical Chamber 3, Nara lay on a scanning platform. 3 medical drones surrounded her, inserting neural probes into the ports implanted along her spine. "Begin stimulation sequence," the lead drone announced. Pain shot through Nara's damaged nervous system. Her back arched involuntarily as the machines attempted to reestablish normal signal patterns in her brain. The working side of her skin flashed rapid patterns of distress, blues and purples that pulsed with each surge of electricity. "Neural response suboptimal," one drone reported. "Continuing treatment." Chief Medical Officer Taro entered the chamber, his tall frame moving with perfect Tajin grace. His skin displayed the professional blue-white pattern of medical authority as he reviewed Nara's readings. "Increase stimulation by 7%, he ordered without looking at her. "Taro." Nara gasped through the pain. The last increase caused seizures. He finally glanced at her, his skin rippling in a pattern that conveyed clinical detachment with undertones of disgust. "The High Command has requested progress reports. We must demonstrate that we are exploring all treatment avenues." The pain intensified. Nara bit back a cry, knowing from experience that showing weakness only reinforced their perception of her as defective. Tajin valued strength, perfection, and contribution to the collective. Her condition made her a drain on resources, a concept so shameful in their culture that there wasn't even a word for it. Later, Nara sat alone in her quarters, examining her reflection in a polished metal surface. By Tajin standards, she was grotesque, asymmetrical in movement and coloration, incapable of proper skin speech, struggling to perform even basic tasks. On Tajin Prime, she would have been restricted to medical facilities. Here, at least, she had some freedom to move about the station. Her personal data terminal chimed with an incoming message. It was from her mother. A rare occurrence. Nara activated the screen with a shaky hand. "Daughter," the recorded message began, her mother's skin displaying the formal familial pattern, but none of the warmth that usually accompanied it. The council has reviewed your case. The consensus is that your condition represents a genetic anomaly that should be studied but not perpetuated. Therefore, your stay at the research facility has been extended indefinitely. Your genetic material has been removed from the reproduction banks. This decision is final. The message ended. Nara sat motionless, absorbing the implications. She was being exiled permanently. Her genetic line, traced back 17 generations to the founding of the first Tajan space colony, would end with her. That night, unable to sleep, Nara returned to the observation deck. The station's night cycle meant she was alone with the stars and the slowly rotating Earth below. She had studied the humans since arriving at the station. Their primitive technology and emotional decision-making were mocked by the Tajan, but something about them fascinated her. Unlike Tajan, humans displayed remarkable diversity. They had different colors, shapes, sizes, abilities, and limitations. Most intriguing to Nara, they seemed to adapt their environment to accommodate these differences rather than expecting every individual to meet a uniform standard. The humans on the station worked alongside several of their kind who moved in wheeled chairs or used devices to assist with hearing, vision, or movement. These humans weren't segregated or pitied. They were integrated into the crew, their contributions valued despite what Tajan would consider serious defects. As Earth came into view again, Nara made a decision. If she was to be exiled here forever, she would learn more about these strange humans. Perhaps among beings who embraced imperfection, she might find something the Tajan had never offered her: acceptance. The station's computer showed the night shift roster. Tomorrow, a new human xenobiologist would begin work in the shared laboratory section, a Dr. Jinho Kim. Nara decided she would find a reason to be there when he arrived. Jinho sorted through his equipment in the shared laboratory, carefully arranging his research materials. It was his third day on the Stellar Horizon station, and he was still adjusting to the artificial gravity and recycled air. The lab was empty except for him. The Tajan scientists preferred to work during what they considered optimal hours, which rarely overlapped with the human schedule. He looked up at the sound of the door sliding open. A Tajan entered, moving with an unusual, halting gait. Jinho recognized her immediately as the one he'd noticed in the dining hall yesterday. The one other Tajan seemed to avoid. "Hello," he said, activating his translator device. "I'm Dr. Jinho Kim." The Tajan paused just inside the doorway, as if surprised by the direct greeting. The left side of her blue-green skin flickered with rapid color changes, while the right remained oddly static. "I am called Nara," she replied, her voice slightly distorted through the translator. "I did not expect anyone to be here." Jinho noticed she was carrying a datapad. "Are you working on research? Don't let me disturb you." "I am not a researcher," Nara said. She hesitated before adding, "I am a medical subject." The way she said it made Jinho pause. There was something in her tone that the translator couldn't quite convey, but it sounded like resignation. "Well, I'm studying xenobiology, specifically the comparative nervous systems of spacefaring species," Jinho explained, deciding not to press about her status. "I'm trying to understand how different evolutionary paths led to similar solutions for complex cognition." Nara moved further into the lab, her movements cautious but deliberate. "That is why I came. I saw your research proposal in the station database. It mentioned neuroplasticity." Jinho nodded. "It's fascinating how different species' brains adapt to injury or change. Humans have made huge advances in assistive neural technology because our brains can form new pathways around damaged areas. Tajan medicine does not focus on adaptation," Nara said quietly. "Our approach is more absolute." Jinho noticed how she held her right arm slightly away from her body, as if it wasn't fully under her control. He had read that Tajan communicated partially through skin color patterns, and now he observed that her patterns appeared uneven. "Would you mind if I asked about your condition?" he asked carefully. "From a scientific perspective." Nara was silent for a moment. The working side of her skin displayed a complex pattern Jin-Ho couldn't interpret. "I was born with incomplete neural development," she finally said. "My right side nervous system formed abnormal pathways. Treatment was unsuccessful. And that's why you're on the station. For treatment." A subtle color shift. Perhaps the Taijin equivalent of a bitter smile. "I am here because imperfection is not tolerated on Taijin Prime. My presence would reflect poorly on my family's genetic standing." Jin-Ho frowned. "They sent you away because of a congenital condition." "They sent me to receive specialized treatment," Nara clarified. "But yes, the result is the same. I will not return." Their conversation was interrupted by an alarm. The lab's lights flashed red, and a computerized voice announced, "Warning. Environmental system malfunction in Section 7. All personnel evacuate to designated safe zones." Jin-Ho quickly gathered his most important equipment. "That's near the human quarters. We should get to the central hub." As they exited the lab, they encountered streams of both humans and Taijin moving through the corridors. Jin-Ho noticed how others gave Nara a wide berth, some Taijin displaying clear patterns of discomfort as they passed. When they reached the central hub, they found it in chaos. Chief Engineer Park was arguing with Taijin Station Commander Miro near the Environmental Control Terminal. "We need to bypass the primary coolant system," Park insisted. "The backup isn't engaging properly." "Taijin protocol is clear," Miro responded, his skin displaying authoritative patterns. "We must follow shutdown sequence Delta. Any deviation risks greater system failure." Jin-Ho felt Nara tense beside him. She moved forward, her awkward gait drawing attention. "Commander," she said, her voice stronger than Jin-Ho had heard before, "Protocol Delta was designed for the previous environmental system. When the station was upgraded last cycle, the integration parameters changed." Miro's skin darkened. "This is not your concern, Nara. The human is correct." Nara persisted. "The coolant bypass will work, but only if the tertiary filters are disengaged first. Otherwise, the pressure buildup will rupture the exchange membranes." The commander's dismissal was clear in his posture and skin patterns, but Chief Engineer Park was already examining the system diagrams. "She's right," Park said. "Look at these connections. The upgrade changed the flow sequence." Miro hesitated, torn between protocol and the growing evidence that Nara was correct. Jin-Ho stepped forward. "Perhaps we could try both approaches," he suggested diplomatically. "Begin the shutdown sequence while preparing the bypass as a contingency." With the situation worsening, Miro finally relented. Engineers from both species worked frantically at the controls. When the standard protocol failed exactly as Nara had predicted, they quickly implemented the bypass suggestion. The alarm ceased, and the environmental readings gradually returned to normal. As the crisis subsided, Jin-Ho watched Nara. She stood apart from the others, unacknowledged despite her crucial insight. The Taijin engineers were already documenting the incident, with Miro overseeing their work. "How did you know about the system integration?" Jin-Ho asked quietly. "I have access to very few areas of the station," Nara replied. "I spend much time in the data archives. No one notices me there, so I read everything. The engineering logs, the maintenance records, the research data. It gives me purpose." Jin-Ho studied her with new interest. "You saved both sections of the station, possibly many lives. Yet no one is acknowledging your contribution." "Acknowledgement would require recognizing my existence as valuable," Nara said simply. "That would contradict their fundamental assessment of my worth." As they spoke, Jin-Ho noticed Station Medical Officer Taro watching them with what appeared to be disapproval. When Taro approached, Nara's functioning skin patches darkened slightly. "The subject should return to medical for evaluation," Taro stated, addressing Jin-Ho rather than Nara. "Stress events may trigger neural deterioration in her condition." Before Jin-Ho could respond, Nara spoke. "I will report to medical shortly, Officer Taro. I am discussing scientific matters with Dr. Kim. Taro's skin flashed in what Jin-Ho interpreted as surprise at her assertiveness. Without another word, he turned and left. That was brave, Jin-Ho observed when Taro was out of earshot. Not brave, Nara corrected. Necessary. Today I proved I can contribute despite my limitations. I would like to learn more about human neural plasticity and your assistive technologies. Perhaps there are solutions Taijin medicine has never considered. Looking at her, Jin-Ho saw not a disabled alien but a brilliant mind trapped in a society that couldn't recognize her value. I think we have a lot to learn from each other, Nara. Let's talk again tomorrow. For the first time, Nara's functioning skin displayed a pattern that Jin-Ho understood perfectly. Hope. Soft blue light bathed the small research lab as Jin-Ho carefully connected delicate wires to the neural interface device on the workbench. 3 weeks had passed since the environmental system crisis, and in that time, he and Nara had established a routine. She would visit his lab during the station's night cycle when most Taijin were resting, and few would notice her movements. Hold still, Jin-Ho said, gently positioning the device at the base of Nara's neck, where her neural ports were located. This might feel strange at first. Nara sat perfectly motionless, which Jin-Ho had learned was difficult for her. What exactly does this human technology do? She asked. It's based on neural bridge systems we developed for people with spinal injuries, Jin-Ho explained. The interface reads brain signals, amplifies them, and helps them bypass damaged pathways. He connected the final wire. I've modified it to work with Taijin physiology based on the scans you provided. Nara's functioning skin patches rippled with a pattern Jin-Ho had come to recognize as anxiety mixed with hope. Over the past weeks, she had taught him the basics of Taijin skin speech, a gesture that other Taijin would have considered inappropriate for a non-Taijin. Ready? Jin-Ho asked, his finger hovering over the activation switch. Ready, Nara confirmed. Jin-Ho activated the device. Nara gasped as the neural interface powered up, sending carefully calibrated electrical impulses along her damaged neural pathways. Her right arm, normally held stiffly against her body, twitched. What do you feel? Jin-Ho asked, watching the diagnostic display. Tingling, Nara said, wonder in her voice. Warmth spreading through my right side. And she concentrated, her face showing intense focus. Slowly, with visible effort, her right hand lifted from her lap. The movement was shaky but deliberate. Then, most astonishing of all, faint color patterns began to appear on the previously non-responsive skin of her right arm. Jin-Ho broke into a broad smile. It's working. The interface is helping your brain create new pathways to control your chromatophores. Nara stared at her hand as the colors shifted, pale at first, then strengthening. This shouldn't be possible, she whispered. Taijin medicine declared my condition permanent. Taijin medicine focuses on perfection, Jin-Ho said, adjusting some settings as he spoke. Human medicine focuses on adaptation. We've learned to work with what we have. Tears formed in Nara's eyes, a biological response Taijin shared with humans, though they rarely displayed it. No one has ever tried to help me adapt before. They only tried to fix me, and when they couldn't. Try moving your right leg, Jin-Ho suggested, not wanting her to dwell on painful memories. The next hour passed in a series of small victories as Nara learned to work with the interface. By the end of the session, she could move her right side with approximately 60% of normal function, and her skin displayed faint but visible color patterns across her entire body. The interface needs refinement, Jin-Ho said as he helped her remove the device. And eventually we can make it smaller, more discreet. But it's a start. A start, Nara repeated, her voice thick with emotion. Jin-Ho, I never expected. Her words trailed off as the lab door slid open unexpectedly. Medical Officer Taro stood in the doorway, his skin displaying patterns of authority and displeasure. What is happening here? He demanded, moving into the lab. Subject Nara, You have missed 2 treatment sessions. Jin-Ho stepped forward. Officer Taro, we've been working on an alternative approach to Nera's condition. Taro's skin darkened. Unauthorized medical experimentation is forbidden. Human technology is not approved for Taejin patients. He turned to Nera. Return to medical immediately. Jin-Ho expected Nera to comply as she always had before. Instead, she stood straighter, her newly responsive skin displaying a pattern of determination. I will not, she said clearly. The treatments you offer provide no benefit. This does. She gestured to the neural interface on the workbench. Taro seemed shocked by her defiance. This is inappropriate. Human medical approaches are primitive and risk-prone. Primitive. Jin-Ho couldn't keep the edge from his voice. Our primitive technology just accomplished what your advanced methods couldn't. Nera showed improvement in a single session. Temporary improvement at best. Taro dismissed. And at what cost? Unknown side effects. Neural degradation. Our protocols exist for a reason. Your protocols exist to maintain an ideal of perfection, Nera said quietly. Not to help those who fall outside that ideal. The tension in the room was palpable. Jin-Ho worried that Taro would report them and end their work together. To his surprise, Taro's skin patterns shifted to something more contemplative. Show me, he finally said. Jin-Ho glanced at Nera, who nodded. Together, they demonstrated the neural interface, explaining its function as Nera once again performed movements that should have been impossible for her. Taro observed in silence. When they finished, he studied the diagnostic readouts on Jin-Ho's display. You achieved this adaptation without genetic manipulation or neural replacement, he asked, his professional curiosity seemingly overcoming his initial resistance. Humans learned long ago that working with existing neural pathways often yields better results than trying to replace them, Jin-Ho explained. The brain is remarkably adaptable if given the right support. Taro was silent for a long moment. I will not report this, he finally said. But I want detailed data on all outcomes, positive and negative. He turned to leave, then paused. And Nera, your scheduled treatments will be reduced to observation only. For now. After Taro left, Nera's skin displayed a pattern Jin-Ho hadn't seen before, a rippling, shimmering effect that spread across her entire body, even the formerly unresponsive areas. What does that pattern mean? He asked. Nera turned to him, her eyes bright. It's joy, she said simply. Pure joy. In the days that followed, Jin-Ho and Nera refined the neural interface, making it smaller and more effective. Nera began to move through the station with greater confidence, her improved mobility drawing curious looks from both humans and Taejin. Word of their work spread. Other human scientists offered suggestions and assistance. A few younger Taejin researchers cautiously expressed interest, though most of their elders maintained a distance, uncomfortable with this merging of their species approaches. One evening, as they finished a successful session, Nera said something that stayed with Jin-Ho long after. On Taejin Prime, I was defined by what I couldn't do, she told him. Here with you, I am defined by possibilities. Perhaps that is the greatest difference between our peoples. You see barriers as challenges to overcome. We see them as nature's way of telling us where to stop. Jin-Ho smiled. Maybe that's why humans needed to develop assistive technology in the first place. We're too stubborn to accept limitations. Nera's skin displayed a pattern he now recognized as affection. I'm grateful for that stubbornness, she said. It gave me something I never had before. Better mobility, Jin-Ho suggested. No, Nera said softly. Hope. The alert sirens wailed throughout the Stellar Horizon station. Red emergency lights pulsed in every corridor as crew members rushed to their assigned positions. Outside the station's reinforced viewports, the darkness of space was interrupted by an ominous glow. Class X solar flare detected, announced the station's computer. Impact in 17 minutes. All personnel report to radiation shelters. In the main control room, Station Commander Dae-sung stared at the monitors with growing concern. The massive eruption from the sun had appeared with almost no warning, giving them minimal time to prepare. Around him, human and Tajan crew worked frantically at their stations. Shields at maximum capacity, reported a Tajan technician, her skin displaying urgent patterns. But the radiation levels exceed our design parameters by 37%. What about emergency power? Dae-sung asked. Redirecting all non-essential systems now, answered his human deputy. It won't be enough. The shield harmonics can't handle this intensity. Jin-ho burst into the control room with Nara close behind. In the 2 months since they had begun their work together, Nara's mobility had improved dramatically. The neural interface, now a small device attached permanently at the base of her neck, allowed her nearly normal movement. Though still not perfect by Tajan standards, the difference was remarkable. Commander, Jin-ho said urgently, we heard about the solar flare. We were working on shield modifications in the lab and may have a solution. Dae-sung looked skeptical but desperate. What kind of solution? Before Jin-ho could answer, Nara stepped forward. The current shield configuration attempts to block all radiation equally, she explained. But that's inefficient. We need to selectively filter the radiation bands. The Tajan shield officer's skin displayed patterns of dismissal. Impossible. Our shields are not designed for selective filtering. Actually, they are, Nara insisted. But the capability was never implemented because the standard Tajan approach favors uniform protection. She moved to a terminal and began entering commands, her once clumsy fingers now moving with purpose. The screen displayed complex shield harmonic patterns. See these wave formations. If we recalibrate the primary emitter to focus on the most dangerous radiation bands and allow minimal exposure to the less harmful ones, we can survive the flare. The shield officer studied the display. These calculations are unorthodox. They're correct, Jin-ho said firmly. We've tested similar configurations in simulations. Commander Dae-sung looked from the monitor showing the approaching flare back to Nara and Jin-ho. How quickly can it be implemented? The primary emitter must be recalibrated manually, Nara said. The control junctions are in the maintenance tube adjacent to the shield generator. That area is already flooded with radiation from the leading edge of the flare. The shield officer objected. No one can reach it safely. The control room fell silent as they confronted the impossible choice. Then Nara spoke. I can do it, she said quietly. Jin-ho turned to her in alarm. Nara, no. The radiation levels won't affect me the same way, she finished. My neural pathways are already compromised. Short-term radiation exposure won't significantly worsen my condition. That's not certain, Jin-ho argued. Nothing is certain, Nara replied. Her functioning skin displayed calm determination. But my neural structure is different from standard Tajan patterns. The radiation may even affect me less severely. Medical Officer Taro, who had entered during the discussion, spoke up. She may be correct. Her neural configuration is unique, more distributed than typical Tajan patterns. Even so, Jin-ho protested. It's too dangerous. 12 minutes to impact, the computer announced. Commander Dae-sung made his decision. Prepare the access tube. Officer Taro, give her whatever radiation protection we have available. Minutes later, Nara stood at the entrance to the maintenance tube. She wore a human radiation suit, modified hastily to fit her Tajan form. It wouldn't provide complete protection, but it would help. Jin-ho stood beside her, his face tight with worry. The recalibration sequence is loaded into this data pad, he said, handing her the device. Just connect it to the primary control junction and initiate the program. Nara took the pad. I understand. Nara. Jin-ho hesitated, then said simply, please come back. Her skin rippled with a pattern meant only for him. One they had created together that had no equivalent in traditional Tajan communication. It meant something like cherished friend, but carried deeper overtones. I will, she promised. The access door slid open, and Nara entered the tube. The door sealed behind her with a hiss. Through the small window, Jin-Ho watched her move away, each step deliberate, and sure thanks to the neural interface they had created together. In the control room, tension mounted as they tracked Nara's progress through the maintenance tube's security cameras. The image quality deteriorated as radiation increased, but they could see her steadily approaching the shield generator. 7 minutes to impact, the computer warned. On the screen, Nara reached the primary emitter controls. Her movements remained precise as she connected the datapad and began the recalibration sequence. The radiation warning sensors on her suit flashed red, indicating dangerous exposure levels. "The recalibration is initializing," reported the shield officer, watching the readings. "Shield harmonics are shifting to the new configuration." "Is it working?" Dae-sung demanded. "Too soon to tell," the officer replied, her skin showing uncertainty patterns. On the screen, Nara completed the recalibration. She disconnected the datapad and turned to begin her return journey. Suddenly, she stumbled, dropping to one knee. "Radiation levels in the tube are rising," Taro reported, monitoring her vital signs remotely. "Her neural implant is experiencing interference." Jin-Ho watched in horror as Nara struggled to stand. The neural interface that gave her mobility was being affected by the intense radiation. She began to crawl forward, her movements becoming increasingly uncoordinated. 4 minutes to impact, the computer announced. "The shield reconfiguration is complete," the shield officer reported. "Harmonics are stabilizing at the new frequencies." "Will it hold?" Dae-sung asked. "Projections indicate, yes. The shield should withstand the flare at these settings." All eyes returned to the screen where Nara continued her painful journey back through the tube. Her progress was agonizingly slow, but she refused to stop. 2 minutes to impact. Jin-Ho could stand it no longer. He rushed from the control room to the maintenance tube access point. Against orders, he opened the outer door, ready to enter the moment the inner door could be safely opened. The station trembled as the first waves of the solar flare struck the shields. Lights flickered, but the power held steady. The recalibrated shields glowed visibly through the viewports, selectively filtering the deadly radiation, just as Nara had predicted. "Impact ongoing," the computer announced. "Shields holding at 78% capacity." In the access tube, the radiation levels finally began to drop as the shields did their work. The inner door slid open, and Jin-Ho rushed in to find Nara collapsed just meters from safety. He carried her to medical, where Taro and the human doctors worked together to assess her condition. Hours later, when the solar flare had passed and the station was secure, Jin-Ho sat beside Nara's bed as she regained consciousness. "Did it work?" she asked weakly. "Perfectly," Jin-Ho told her. "You saved the station." Taro approached, datapad in hand. "I've completed my analysis of your neural scans," he said to Nara, his skin displaying a pattern Jin-Ho had never seen him use before: respect. "The radiation exposure was significant," Taro continued, "but your neural pathways responded differently than standard Teijin patterns would have. Your brain actually formed new connections during the crisis." "What does that mean?" Jin-Ho asked. Taro's skin shifted to the pattern used for scientific discovery. "It means we've been wrong. Nara's neural structure isn't defective. It's adaptive in ways we never considered. The very traits we dismissed as disabilities allowed her to process the shield calculations differently and survive radiation that would have severely damaged a normal Teijin." Nara looked stunned. "My condition is beneficial. Perhaps different is more accurate than beneficial or defective," Taro said thoughtfully. "Your neural patterns allow different types of problem-solving and adaptation than standard Teijin configurations. In some situations, like today, those differences become advantages." As the implications sank in, Jin-Ho took Nara's hand. "I told you humans value different perspectives," he said with a smile. Now it seems even Tajin biology might agree. The main conference room of the Stellar Horizon Station hummed with tension. On one side of the long table sat 3 senior Tajin officials who had arrived by special transport after the solar flare incident. Their skin displayed formal patterns of authority and scientific interest. On the other side sat Commander Daesung, Dr. Jinho, and Medical Officer Taro. Nara stood at the end of the table, her improved neural interface allowing her to stand steadily despite her lingering fatigue from radiation exposure. "The High Command's position is clear," said senior official Lim, his skin rippling with patterns of absolute certainty. "Subject Nara must return to Tajin Prime for comprehensive study. Her unique neural adaptations represent a scientific opportunity that must be explored under controlled conditions." "Subject Nara," Jinho repeated, unable to keep the edge from his voice. "Her name is Dr. Nara. She earned that title by saving this station and everyone on it." Lim's skin darkened slightly at the correction. "The honorific is irrelevant. The subject belongs to the Tajin Medical Authority. Her presence here was always temporary." Nara spoke before Jinho could respond. "I respectfully decline to return to Tajin Prime," she said, her voice steady. The 3 officials displayed patterns of shock. One leaned forward, her skin showing disbelief. "You do not have the authority to decline. The decision has been made." Commander Daesung cleared his throat. "Actually, under Section 7 of the Human-Tajin Cooperation Treaty, any individual may request asylum if they have reasonable fear of mistreatment." "Mistreatment?" Lim's skin flashed with indignation. "We offer her the highest medical attention." "Medical attention she didn't consent to," Jinho pointed out. "Treatment that ignored her potential rather than nurturing it." Taro, who had been silent until now, displayed a pattern that indicated a desire to speak. When Lim acknowledged him, he said, "I have served as Nara's medical supervisor for 3 standard years. In that time, Tajin protocols produced no improvement in her condition. In contrast, working with Dr. Kim and using adaptive rather than corrective approaches has yielded remarkable results." He activated a display showing before and after neural scans of Nara's brain. "These changes demonstrate that her neural structure isn't defective, but different in ways that can be advantageous. During the solar flare crisis, her unique neural patterns allowed her to conceptualize shield configurations that saved the station." "One success doesn't invalidate years of medical consensus," Lim argued. "It does when that consensus was built on a flawed premise," Nara replied. "You assumed my condition was a defect to be fixed, rather than a variation to be understood." The debate continued for hours. The Tajin officials insisted that Nara's return was non-negotiable. Jinho and Commander Daesung cited treaty provisions protecting individual rights. Taro presented medical evidence supporting Nara's case for autonomy. As tensions escalated, the conference room door opened. Human Ambassador Hannah entered, followed by 2 station security officers. "Ambassador," Lim acknowledged, his skin showing surprise. "This is an internal Tajin matter. When it involves a request for asylum on a joint human-Tajin facility, it becomes a diplomatic matter." Ambassador Hannah replied calmly. She turned to Nara. "You've formally requested protection under Section 7. "I have," Nara confirmed. The ambassador nodded. "Then, as the human representative, I am obligated to ensure your request receives proper consideration." She sat down at the table. "Let's continue this discussion with all parties represented." Lim's skin displayed patterns of frustration, but he recognized the protocol. With the ambassador present, the conversation shifted from demands to negotiations. 3 days later, Nara stood in Jinho's lab, staring at the official agreement displayed on the screen before her. "I can hardly believe it," she said softly. "They actually agreed." Jinho smiled. They didn't have much choice. Once Ambassador Hannah invoked the treaty provisions, they had to negotiate or risk a diplomatic incident. The agreement was groundbreaking. Nara would remain on the Stellar Horizon Station As an independent researcher with joint human-Tajan status, she would share her unique insights into neural adaptation, but only through voluntary participation in research. Most importantly, she would help establish a new program for other Tajan with non-standard neural patterns. "Do you think others will come?" she asked Jinho. "I think there are many on Tajan Prime who have been waiting for an opportunity like this," he replied. People who were told they were defective when they were simply different. A chime at the door announced a visitor. To their surprise, it was senior official Lim. His skin displayed a formal pattern of professional engagement as he entered. "Dr. Nara," he said, using her title for the first time. "The transport returning to Tajan Prime departs in 1 hour. Before I leave, I wish to inform you that your case has prompted significant discussion among the medical authority." Nara's skin showed cautious interest. "What kind of discussion?" "Some of our younger researchers have questioned our standard approaches to neural variation," Lim admitted. "They have requested permission to review similar cases using the adaptive model you and Dr. Kim developed." Jinho couldn't hide his surprise. "That's unexpected." Lim's skin displayed a complex pattern that suggested reluctant acceptance. "Change is difficult for our species. We value consistency and proven methods. But ignoring evidence is not scientific." He handed Nara a data crystal. "This contains information on 17 individuals on Tajan Prime with neural patterns similar to yours. If your program here proves successful, they may be candidates for participation." After Lim departed, Nara turned the crystal in her hands, her skin displaying waves of emotion too complex for Jinho to fully interpret. 17 others, she whispered. "All this time, I thought I was alone." 1 year later, the observation deck of the stellar horizon had been transformed into a research and rehabilitation center. 6 Tajan with various neural variations worked alongside human and Tajan specialists, developing new technologies and approaches to neural adaptation. Nara moved among them, her own neural interface now so refined that a casual observer might not notice her once profound disability. She stopped beside a young Tajan female who was struggling to control a delicate research instrument with trembling hands. "Don't force the movement," Nara advised gently. "Let the interface learn your patterns. It will adapt to you as much as you adapt to it." The young Tajan's skin displayed frustration. "On Tajan Prime, they said I would never perform precision work." "They said the same about me," Nara told her with a smile. "Now I calibrate shield harmonics that they once thought I couldn't even understand." From the doorway, Jinho watched the exchange with satisfaction. The program had exceeded all expectations, with applications for participation coming from throughout Tajan space. More surprisingly, the Tajan Medical Authority had begun implementing some of their adaptive approaches on Tajan Prime itself. Nara noticed him and excused herself from her student. As she joined him, her skin displayed the special pattern they had created together, their private symbol of connection. "The High Command has approved our request," Jinho told her. "You've been appointed as the first Tajan ambassador for neural diversity. They want you to visit Tajan Prime to address the Science Council." Nara's skin rippled with surprise and joy. "Return home. As an ambassador rather than a patient." Jinho nodded. "They're calling it a cultural exchange initiative. I've been invited to accompany you as the human representative." Together, they walked to the viewport where Earth shone blue and green against the darkness of space. Beside it, the Tajan transport ship waited to carry them to a world that had once rejected Nara for being different. "Are you nervous about going back?" Jinho asked. Nara's skin displayed calm determination. "No. A year ago, I was defined by what I couldn't do. Now I'm defined by what I've accomplished and what I can teach others." She turned to face him, her once halting movements now fluid and confident. "You showed me that differences aren't defects. Now I can show my people the same truth." As they prepared for their journey, news spread throughout the station. Humans and Tajan alike came to wish them well. Even Medical Officer Taro, who had once seen Nara only as a subject for study, displayed patterns of respect and gratitude as he bid them farewell. "You have changed more than yourself," he told Nera. "You have changed how we see ourselves and each other." Aboard the transport ship, Nera took her place not in the medical bay where she had arrived years before, but on the command deck as an honored representative. As the ship pulled away from the station, she watched the stellar horizon grow smaller against the backdrop of Earth. "What are you thinking?" Jinho asked, standing beside her. Nera's skin displayed a complex, beautiful pattern that encompassed gratitude, hope, and purpose. "I'm thinking about all the others, Taejin and Human, who are told they don't fit, who are defined by what they lack rather than the unique perspective they offer." She turned to him, her eyes bright. "We're going to change that, one mind at a time." The ship accelerated toward Taejin Prime, carrying with it not just two travelers, but a new understanding of what it meant to be whole.